right. Well, thank you so much for inviting me. I am thrilled to be here. And I don't know how many of you um, I'm just going to do a plug for you, Fadi, because one of the things I saw you do, several years ago at an Agile, I think at the big Agile conference, you did a really interesting talk about metrics based on the Agile Manifesto. And if you're not giving that talk more often or a new version of it, I hope that you do, because it really changed how a bunch of us in the audience thought about metrics. I know I'm not supposed to talk about other people at my talk, but yeah, so you should all listen. All right, so let's talk about modern management. I have found that so many people think we don't need managers with Agile approaches. The manifesto for Agile software development talks about collaborative, cross-functional, self-empowered, self-organizing teams. That's the whole point of using a more formal approach such as Scrum. Kanban also believes that you need to have a cross-functional team so that you can manage your WIP and release stuff on a reasonable basis, on a regular basis. But is it just teams that we need? And my answer is no. We also need management. But the problem is a lot of management actions have very little to do with leadership and everything to do with control. And the control is really the problem. So let me talk about why management exists. Drucker says that management exists to organize for a purpose, and the purpose is why the organization exists. I'm going to talk about more about the whys a little bit later. So if I think about kind of the triad of management, that managers manage themselves before they manage anybody else, that create a harmonic whole by leading and serving others, and they act for a purpose, that innovation reason. So as I talk through all of this, think about managing yourself, think about how other people feel as you manage and you lead and serve others, and how you might innovate inside of your organization. I'm going to talk about these 7 principles, and I do want to call out one thing. I did not say that transparency or communication is a principle. If you use these principles, you will get transparency and communication. Okay, so I'm going to talk in this talk is kind of a triad talk where you manage yourself first and become a trusted leader. Then you focus on creating a team environment by leading and serving others, and create an environment of innovation within Agile culture. So let's talk first about how great managers manage themselves. If you have not heard of congruence, where people balance themselves, the other person, and the context, I find that this is a really great frame for managers and leaders to think about how do people feel as I lead them. So the brief explanation of congruence is when we balance ourselves, the other, and the context, right? We find that balance with everything. However, a lot of what organizations do is all about blaming. We think that we need performance management to manage other people. That's blaming them for not doing the right things when we need them to do the right things. We also placate other people in the organization, especially if a senior leader says, "Can't you just do this one more thing in any way, shape, or form?" And the leader says, "Fine, we'll try." Anytime you hear "fine, we'll try," you're probably placating a more senior leader. When you're super reasonable, you forget that there are people in the context, right? That there are people involved in the interaction. That My husband is very fond of explaining to me that since asparagus is a lovely vegetable, I should like it. Well, asparagus tastes terrible to me. I really hate it. I know many of you were saying, there's something wrong with you, Johanna. Asparagus is lovely. No, not for me. So when my husband says to me, you should love that because other people love it, I say, no, I don't like it. So he's being super reasonable just because other people have found this useful. And then there's irrelevant, where you consider none of the above. I find that I live in the Boston area. We have many sports teams. And if you have ever gotten into a delicate conversation, and then the other person or one of the people around the table, the virtual table maybe, say, how about those Red Sox? Or how about those Patriots? That's a totally irrelevant part of the conversation. It might decrease the uncomfortableness, the discomfort that you're having, but it totally derails the conversation. It's not congruent. And what's very interesting is that when you're congruent, people can trust you more. They can predict more about how you will behave. If you tend to be blaming, if you tend to be placating, it's hard to know how to trust you. So there's this notion of congruence and trust is very much a part of how we show up at work. Now, there are many manage yourself myths, but let me talk about one that I find very challenging. That's the myth where the manager says, don't bring me a problem, bring me a solution. Well, the first time somebody said this to me, a manager in the organization, I kind of looked at her and said, why would I bring you a solution if I'm stuck, right? I have a problem. I don't know what to do with it. I've done all these things. I'm stuck. Why would I have to bring you a solution if I want support and help and coaching to think through this problem? And she said, well, I want to make sure you've actually thought about it first. I said, you can tell that by what I'm doing. So when people say, don't bring me a problem, bring me a solution, they're saying, I don't want to know what you've done already. I don't want to know about problems when they're small. I'm blaming you for not figuring out what the problem is. So this notion of don't bring me a problem, bring me a solution, that's kind of nutso. And if you ever find yourself saying that, I bet that's because your managers said it to you, right? You are not to blame. This is something you have heard all along your career. And what I'm suggesting now is that you have a choice to change how you lead and serve others. When you say, bring me problems when they're small, and we can decide, do you want coaching? Do you want coaching from me? How do you want to explore this? Do you need other support or training or other expertise to help you through thinking through this problem, right? I'm not suggesting that you solve the problem for someone else. I'm not even suggesting that you arrange for someone else to solve the problem for the person who brought you the problem. I am suggesting you have many, many more alternatives than just saying, don't bring me a problem, bring me a solution. So if I think about the principles, I'm going to focus on just two of the principles here. If you build empathy with the people who do the work, you assume that they know what they're doing, even if they have a little bump in the road, even if they have a big bump in the road, and they really need help and support and training and expertise for solving this particular problem. Now, what's very interesting is if you build a safe environment and you admit when you don't know and when you need help, that allows people to say, I don't quite get this. I need a little help here. And what's very interesting about this particular piece of psychological safety is that when you model the behavior of admitting when you don't know or you need help. That allows other people to say it and to explore alternatives, to explore experiments, to optimize for learning, not just for delivery. So there's this very interesting piece about when you manage yourself, you build trustworthiness and a safe environment for other people to succeed. So the second part of our agenda is about leading and serving others. So when I think about management, I think about leading and serving. However, that's not at all directing and controlling. So in the chat, I want you to think back to the best manager you had. How did you feel when you worked there? Or what do you remember about the environment, right? Do you remember the work or the product or the teams, something else? So please put in the chat, how did you feel when you worked for the best manager you ever had? And please send that to everyone. I'm looking over there on my other monitor. Trusted, safe, other things. Empowered, heard, empowered and truly supported, supported and empowered, open-minded, made me think and challenged to be better. Oh, I love that. Supported and encouraged to learn and grow, empathy, valued, confident, encouraged. There is wisdom and purpose in every interaction we have. It is coherent and authentic. Oh, I really like that. I wonder how your manager did that, but maybe that's a different question. Encourage personal goals. I really like that. So what do you remember of the work when you worked there in that wonderful environment? This is the what do you remember question. Felt ownership to the outcome. Oh, I really like that. Challenged. I really like the idea of feeling challenged in the work. Part of an awesome team, they got lots of valuable things done. I agree. Yeah, I agree. All right. So, oh, and don't feel like quitting. I really like that. So I'm going to put in the chat because and learned and grow a lot. Lovely. I'm going to put a line in the chat. So we have a separation because I want to talk about just one of your terrible managers. I know that many of you have had many terrible managers. Sorry about that. Think back to just one of them. And I want you to answer this question. How did you feel when you worked there with that terrible manager? And do you remember any of the work except how you felt about it? So how did you feel when you worked there with a terrible manager? Not heard, manipulated and abused, frustrated and stressed out, disgusted. Oh, those of you who are messaging just me, see if you are willing to put stuff to everyone in the chat. We were not worth enough. Use like resources. Oh, resources. That's the worst thing to call human beings. Human beings are resourceful. They are not resources. Experiencing that I was thinking my biggest nightmare as a professional is being a terrible manager. Well, you're here. You're already thinking about it, so you're not. Low team morale, only collecting a paycheck. Kept thinking if I should quit. Yeah, right. So here's what I want you to do. Let's not stress about this. I'm going to put a line in the chat again so that we separate this. And I want you to shake it off, right? Just shake off those bad feelings and think back to the best manager you had, right? So shake off the worst, think back to the best, and realize that people always remember how you made them feel. That's what people remember. Sometimes they remember the products, Sometimes they remember the teams. I actually remember some of the people on my teams, their faces. I could not remember their names. If you gave me $1,000,000, I do not remember their names, but I remember how I felt, and I remember the products, and I remember the pride I had working on those products. So one of the problems we have especially inside software, which I find so interesting, is that outdated management assumptions color management actions. You might not have heard of McGregor's Theory X and Theory Y, but Theory X is all about people avoiding work, people needing to be controlled, people don't want responsibility, only money motivates people, people have no creativity except for getting around the rules. And if you think about, again, I'm going to pick on performance management. If you think about everything about the performance management that occurs in your organization, it's all about Theory X. It's not about Theory Y, where people want to master their work, where people can manage themselves, where people seek responsibility, where people want to learn and accomplish something greater than themselves, and that people are creative. So here's what I find very interesting. We all manage to get to work roughly on time, right? Some of us are not as on time as maybe other people would like. We all manage to get dressed and fed. We all manage to take responsibility for our housing, for other people, for our pets. We are responsible human beings. We take responsibilities seriously, and we react accordingly. And we master all kinds of challenges all the time. So that means people can do the job that we need them to do. Now, they might need some support or training, but they absolutely can do the job. And what I find really interesting is that people often live up or down to your expectations of them. If you expect that people can do a great job and you support them in whatever way they need supporting, then they will do a great job. If you don't support them, they might find ways to do a great job even without your support. But if you expect that people cannot do their work, if you expect that people are going to avoid the work, people will definitely live down to your expectations of them. So let me talk about just one of these myths, that people don't need credit for their work. Many years ago, I worked in an organization where it was a different kind of a transformation. I was a consultant, and I worked with the more senior consultant. This is at the beginning of my consulting career. His name was not Jim, but I will call him Jim just so I have a name to hang on him. No offense to any of the Jims in this particular call. So we were working with several teams. There was the transformation team. We were also working with some cross-functional product development teams. And one of the cross-functional product development teams and the transformation team did really wonderful, wonderful work. And so we reported to the senior leadership. And Jim actually said, we did this kind of a thing in this last quarter, which was really wonderful and helped you make several million in revenue. Now, notice that Jim said we, meaning Johanna and Jim, but not the transformation team and not the cross-functional teams. And so senior leadership was thrilled with us. They did not realize what the people in their own organization had done. So I actually said at the time, by the way, the transformation team did 1, 2, and 3, and these couple of cross-functional product teams did these other things. That's how you made so much money. I gave credit to the people doing the work. So Jim later took me aside and said, how could you do that? I said, how can I not? It was not honest of us to take credit for their work. He said, well, we helped them do that work. I said, yes, Well, one of the things about consulting is we're not supposed to need credit for the work, right? We get credit indirectly, but the people who do the work need the credit. This is exactly the same thing with the managers in your organization. If the managers take credit for the work that the people that they lead and serve do, how can anybody know what people do in the organization? I had a wonderful manager who often gave credit to those of us in the people she led and served. It was a single function team, but the reason I got to lead programs is because she gave me credit for the senior leadership meetings. The senior leadership does not know who does the work. And I know that managers don't do the work. I know as a consultant, I work through others. So it's really important to give credit to other people for doing the work that they did. There's a whole bunch of reasons why your managers might not do that right now, and you can offer reinforcing feedback to your managers to help them do this more often. So what I find is that when managers lead and serve, the team really finds it flow. So even if you give credit to individuals, you're more likely to give credit to teams as a whole. That means that the team will collaborate as a team. They learn individually and as a team. That goes to autonomy and mastery, and they focus on a common purpose. So if you don't get stuck in these myths about leading and serving others, then you were able to lead and serve a cross-functional team, especially. So let me talk a little bit about the principles for leading and serving others. I find that when I build a safe environment by teaching feedback and coaching, the people in the team can offer each other feedback and coaching. So especially offer reinforcing feedback. So Buckingham and Kaufman, or maybe it's just Buckingham in the 9 Principles book, talk about reinforcing feedback is so much more valuable than change-focused feedback. I had a manager once who actually said to me, Johanna, when you offer the senior managers examples and in a diplomatic way of how they can actually choose the work in the project portfolio, when you do that, as opposed to saying, no, we can't do all of that, when you say, here's what we can do, and here's why this is important, they are more likely to listen to you. So when you focus on the positive, they are more likely to hear you than when you focus on the negative. Luckily, that was a long time ago. And if I remember that reinforcing feedback, I change how I work with senior leadership, right? That reinforcing feedback made a whole huge difference in my ability to reach the senior leaders. And now, when you encourage experiments and learning as a leader, right, especially as a leader of a team, then you're optimizing for learning as opposed to optimizing for delivery. Now, what's the little difference here? When you optimize for delivery of a committed piece of work and you don't learn if you don't do the double loop learning, you lead the double loop learning, then people don't learn what was useful and what was not as useful. They're not examining the product and the process. When you encourage experiments and learning, especially as a team, everybody learns together and the team learns how to deliver faster. This catching people succeeding is more about the reinforcing feedback. So I will tell you, there's a 9 tips or 9 lessons for I don't remember the Buckingham book. If you send me an email later, or if you look in the references for the Modern Management Made Easy, it's in there. Or I can just tell you a little bit later. So let me go on to the third piece, where managers lead for innovation. Peter Drucker said, every organization needs one core competence, innovation. Now, if you are a manager and have not read Drucker, I highly recommend that you do. And everywhere he uses the word man, substitute the word woman, or a man and woman, or men and women. Because I would like to think that if Peter Drucker had known me, he would not be quite so sexist in his writing. But yeah, that's a different problem. So I modified Drucker's quote to say management innovation. If we want agile organizations, managers need to change the culture and managers need to change what they do. And there is not one single recipe for how to do this. Yes, it's 9 lies about work. Thank you very much, Tiffany. So if we think about leading for innovation and management innovation, let's think first about where managers spend their time. I see a whole lot of micromanagement on the part of all managers. So senior leadership is focused on execution, on the immediate, on the low level, on how people do their work, on copying what other people do. How many people do you know are saying, let's just use the Spotify model? And Spotify doesn't use the Spotify model anymore, right? It's all about the short term. Now, we need to focus on tactical actions at every level of management. However, we need to spend even more time on strategic thinking. So how do we plan at a high level and create options for what we will do next? How do we have a large scale, longer time frame of seeing what's going on without committing to too much work? How can we focus on the why of the organization, the why of the product, the why for the team? When we think about the why, we are much more likely to create a great purpose where people can do a great job. What's unique to our context, so we can adapt what other people do, but not copy what other people do. How much time do we spend on the long-term thinking? That's managers at all levels need to spend enough time on strategic thinking rather than on tactical actions. So let me talk about just one organizational leadership myth, and that's about 100% utilization. A lot of organizations are still stuck on utilization, and they optimize for the person, not for the product or for the team. So if you have 100% utilization, everybody is on several projects. They're 30% on this project, 30% on that project, 30% on this other project, and 10% on yet another. And the worst part is they're not all on the same projects. They're all on different projects. If you focus on utilization, I would say you don't have teams. You have individuals trying to create teams with other people. And that's a huge, huge problem, because what does an agile team need? They need to know who are the people that we work with, that we can collaborate with, who are the people that we can count on to work with us, who are the people that we commit to a given purpose with. I mean, that's what a team is, right? So if you're not on a given team, if you're supposedly on 3 teams, you're not on any one team. So 100% utilization does not work at all. And instead, the organization needs to manage the project portfolio. You cannot have more projects in progress than you have teams to do them. Multitasking is the fastest way to get nothing done. And the more multitasking you have, the less you get done of anything. And if you want an agile organization, maybe the first thing you do is to stop work on all the extra projects. You got to choose what's first, second, and third, staff those projects with full cross-functional teams and not do anything else. So you cannot do that if you don't know the why for the organization. So when I talk to managers about their project portfolio, I often realize this manager has his or her objectives. Whether you call them OKRs or management by objectives, it does not matter. But manager 1 has her objectives, manager 2 has his, manager 3 has his, manager 4 has hers, manager 5, 6, and 7, they all have individual objectives. They are not collaborating as a management team. And that's because they don't have a why for the organization. So if you say, here's the why for our organization, here's how you as a manager contribute to that why for the organization, that allows you then to have an overarching goal. So you can seek outcomes by optimizing for that overarching goal. All the managers can define and collaborate on that overarching goal. And you are able to then exercise your value-based integrity, where you can say no to more work. Every time I see this request for more work, it's because people are not sure when their turn will come around again. And if they need their turn, you're probably not optimizing for an overarching goal to meet the needs of the why for the organization, or you're not agile enough. So for fast delivery of small chunks of value. So the more you can think about how do I exercise my value-based integrity by not lying to customers, especially by optimizing for an overarching goal, by clarifying my purpose, that will really help. So let me talk about one of the really big things that occurs in organizations. Your organization might well reward resource efficiency. If you are still rewarding people on their individual work and only their individual work, you reward resource efficiency. That's where the work assignment arrives. The first person does their part, they hand off to the second person. That person does their part, they hand off to the third person, et cetera, et cetera. Every single arrow here is a possible delay. Instead, when teams work in flow efficiency and they don't have to mob or swarm, it might be that a 6-person team works as 2 triads or 3 pairs, right? It's something like that. When teams work as a team to finish their parts, they are much more likely to finish work faster. Now, I happen to be a big fan of swarming and mobbing. I really like it when teams collaborate as a total cross-functional team, or as these triads or pairs, triads preferably. But if you don't reward teamwork, if you don't reward collaboration as opposed to cooperation, you are not going to get flow efficiency, and you will not get the real collaboration you could get as a cross-functional team. Now, why do organizations focus on resource efficiency? It all goes back to cost accounting. Cost accounting works with thinking about dividing and conquer. If I think about the tasks here, we can divide the work into design. We can divide the work into coding. We can divide the work into testing. Instead, if we have, and then you only tell people, you need to know this, you need to know that, you need to know this other thing. That's where you get divide and conquer. You also get a lot of inventory, partially finished work. The more you have partially finished work, the longer it takes for the work to finish. Cost accounting does not work for software. That's because knowledge work is not factory work. I mean, cost accounting might have worked for factory work, but cost accounting really worked for slavery. If you have not read Accounting for Slavery, it's first of all horrific. And secondly, this is what we do with cost accounting now. So we might have to report in cost accounting. We do not have to manage with cost accounting. Cost accounting, inventory, divide and conquer, all are antithetical for agile approaches. there's an interesting comment in the chat, and I will talk about that when I open up for questions. So let's think about how managers create and refine the culture. Managers and leaders can actually refine the culture in several ways. What we would choose to reward for individuals, what we choose to reward for teams, and how we choose to reward groups and the organization in general. Now, Shine talks about artifacts, values, and assumptions. I simplify this to how do we treat each other, what can we discuss, and what we choose to reward. If the organization chooses to reward managers for their deliverables, which are actually deliverables from the teams, then the organization is trying to take a shortcut to rewarding great work. Instead, the organization needs to reward the people who do the great work, not as individuals, because I don't know anybody who does great work alone. I only know about people who do great work together. And the team always knows who does the great work. So the team knows what's going on. So remember Lewin's equation that says every single person's behavior is a function of the person and the environment. And the environment includes the reward system. One thing I see a lot is the culture of any organization is shaped by the worst behavior the leader is willing to tolerate. If you have a person who denigrates others and you reward that person because they are a 10x developer, no, there are no such thing as 10x developers. There are only developers who use the environment and use the reward system to their advantage. Now, there are probably developers who also support and coach other people. I think of them as 10x developers, where they're helping to raise everybody up to their level. And can I be raised up to the level of an architect? No, but I have my own talents and skills. I am quite ready to learn other talents and skills, but I'm never going to be a code architect or a product architect. However, I can appreciate those people and understand what they can contribute to the product. So when I think about building your agile management habits, I want you to think in terms of progress, not perfection, right? When you think about how your actions affect the culture, I'm asking you to start with behaviors before your beliefs and to always start with yourself, that people always remember that how you made them feel. And if you don't know the why for the organization, for the team, and for you, nothing else matters. So I've talked about these 7 principles, and I hope that we stay in touch in some ways. I write the Pragmatic Manager newsletter. Please link with me on LinkedIn, and the books are there. I'm going to stop the share so I can address the chat and have a conversation. And if you are able and ready, please come off. Please turn on your camera. Okay, so let's see. Amy asked, what about the worst behavior a leader exhibits? That's part of the culture. If the organization rewards that behavior, rewards that the worst behavior the leader exhibits, you know what the organization rewards. You do. It's really a problem. So you might consider trying to find a place where that leader does something useful and offer reinforcing feedback. Or you might, if you're like me, you say to somebody, you know, when you do this thing, this is the impact it has on me, and I would like you to change. Because I'm not worried about how people see me. So I have a request to show the contact slide again. Let me do that. Yeah, there. Everything is on jrothman.com. I'm going to stop it so I can see the chat again easily. Okay, So if a new leader joins an organization, what are the first things you'd suggest that that leader should do? So that's where I think that you should meet one-on-one with everybody that you lead and serve, that you ask specifically about the purpose of the organization, the purpose, the value that the people you lead and serve offer, and the value your leader wants from you. I often ask, when I come in as a consultant, I say, what would make you, how would you feel, if we think about success at 30, 60, 90 days, what does that look like for you? Right? That's part of what I do as a consultant. You can certainly do that with you as a leader in the organization. I have also been known to say, how can I make you, my leader, more successful? I also ask that question of the people I lead and serve. What impediments do I need to remove? So I'm not, I think that how do I make you more successful is part of the managing up, but it's also so important to say, what impediments can I remove for you as a team? Because that allows the team to really start making progress, the forward progress. What other questions do you have?
Johanna, this is Raghu. Hope you don't mind if I just talk it out rather than chat. So you said you don't mind telling people, what you have to say, but as you're, you need to kind of balance being the troublemaker and being the helper towards the journey that you want the clients of yours to take. I just want to hear from you on how you balance that, so that not that because you want to be called again only, although that's also important, but because you want to be able to help them in a sustained manner, rather than just being crisp about that one event.
So that's why I really focus on the reinforcing feedback, right? I will offer, so in 9 Lies About Work, Buckingham talks about people kind of stress out on the bad thing, the change focused feedback. So I start trying to appreciate something about a person from the beginning. And I try and find something to appreciate or offer reinforcing feedback all the time. And that I especially do that if I think that that the leader needs to change something really specific. I will offer separately, right? I don't do the feedback sandwich where I say, here's what you're doing well, here's what you're doing badly, here's what you're doing wrong. No, I separate that in terms of time and place. But what I will do is say, I know that you want this outcome. I see you do these actions. How well do you think that those actions match this outcome? And then we walk through them. So I might not even offer feedback. I go directly to coaching. Now I can do that because I'm a consultant. Not everybody in the organization can do that. However, if you build a trusting relationship with the person whose behavior you want to change, and you help that person achieve their goals, they are more likely to listen to you, because they're probably not all bad. They're probably doing something not that useful for their specific goals. Does that make sense, Raghu?
It does. Yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah.
You're welcome. Anton asks, how can a manager influence the organization towards Agile? I don't think you should, right? I'm just going to say Agile transformations are not that useful in and of themselves. They are useful only for the business outcomes that the organization wants. So find a business outcome that the organization needs, and how can Agile approaches help that? That will expose all the things currently happening right now. And this is where you can use force field analysis to say, here are the things holding the system in place. Here are the things that we want to have happen. And if we want this business transformation, this business outcome, I'm not even sure I should use business transformation at all. I think business outcomes is what we want. So Anton, I don't think that an organizational transformation to agility is worthwhile. I think a business outcome will prompt people to say, oh, that agile thing, maybe it's not just for teams, maybe it's really for everybody, because that's how you get the transformation, the business outcome that we want. So start thinking about outcomes, start thinking about how the business will improve and what things prevent the business from getting what they want now. I think that's a better way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Cameron,
yeah, I understand what you're saying. Yeah, it's just sometimes the organization, with standardized process, right, and very thorough processes, blocks the fast-paced agile practices, right, and that's the main blocker, I guess, for big organizations as well. And that's something that is very interesting. How to basically work with.
So I will say that not all organizations need to have business agility. And I suspect that most organizations do. And what they need is to focus on those outcomes. What do managers want and how can they achieve them? And I think that that's a much better entree into stopping all the process work and the standardization.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I hear you. Thank you.
Okay. Cameron, you have a hand up?
Yeah, I had a question. And I really enjoyed the presentation, by the way. So I'm in college right now, right? And before college, I was I don't know, I was in high school and I was part-time, I was working at this maker space, and I was working for this carpenter. He's like entrepreneur kind of guy, right? So I like going there because first it was like a free membership and stuff like that, but then I eventually had to, once I got my training, I had to start paying for it and stuff like that. But basically I was working for him and learning more carpentry skills, and he was still taking care of the membership and stuff like that. So I don't know, COVID hit and I had to start school and stuff like that. So I don't know, I kept in touch, and I was yeah, I'm not coming down today because I don't know, because I've got school and stuff like that. And I don't know, last conversation we had, he said that yeah, I know you're starting school and stuff, so I respect your I respect your space, but he also said I need to be more proactive, if I needed it, if I was gonna come out and stuff like that. And I said, well, am I I really wanted to say it, but I was thinking it. I was like, I thought me calling you and telling you what's going on in my life is me being proactive. So so I kind of threw me off. But right now I'm looking for a job, and I'm I feel like I want to go back down there and either work with him again or just do my own thing. But I'm kind of stopping myself because of that bad experience with him. On it wasn't even that bad, but I'm just I've been at OpenWorks all throughout high school, 4 years. So maybe I should just find something else. Okay.
Okay, so I'm a big fan of asking for what you want and finding a way to first make that connection with this person to ask for what you want. And I'm not sure what you're asking about in the context of my presentation, but thinking about congruence, maybe that's the place, right? So I'm not sure why he was concerned that you did not show up again. that you might need to have a conversation about that. But think about how you can balance what you want, what he wants, and the context. And that might be a good place for you to start. So I'm gonna, there's, Amy asked another question, but can you talk a little bit more about the difference in management between government agency and a private organization? So Amy, you are probably more familiar with a government agency than I am. However, when you are in a private organization, you have a whole lot more flexibility about who you hire, when, and how you can, for lack of a better term, get rid of them. However, if you have a non-geller on the team, if you have somebody who is not working on that well, and you are the leader, you can isolate that person regardless of whether or not you are in a government agency or in a private corporation. So you always have to live up to the HR policies where you work, and you might have placating HR policies as opposed to blaming. So I think it's really important to say, what can you do within the policies that you have to create a better environment for everybody? Is that something that would help?
In some ways, we do have we have hiring issues. It takes a very long time to hire people, and they get really people don't really move on unless they retire, right? And and also managers in a lot of ways. I've seen a lot of people who are not really have experiences, but they're a frontline manager. They just keep on climbing and becoming, branch manager, and they don't really have a lot of experiences. And I'm not sure, they just follow the rules. And like you said, the performance management, it's kind of a necessary evil. Everyone does that as a paper stamp, just getting through it. And it is, in some way, it is really challenging, to get a right, it's nice to have a good manager. I've been very fortunate so far. But, if you're in a bad manager situation, a lot of people I've seen, they're just move on to a different position, maybe in the same organization, right? And the manager also, they seem to have a very high turnover rate too, and they keep on rotating.
All right, so let me suggest something a little subversive, because that I really excel at subversion. Instead of if I worked in your organization, I would start a book club, reading books together. I might start with my 3 books, but you can start with almost anything, right? Start with a book club about ways of leading and managing that you think would be useful. So you're not saying to people you're a terrible manager and that you stay here too long. You're instead saying, what can we learn? That's one of the 7 principles. How can we start to learn as an organization? I think a book club is a very easy, low-cost way to learn. And the more you choose to learn as teams, the better it is for every single person, right? So instead of saying, I see all these problems, take one small step and say, maybe a book club isn't the right thing. Well, what's the smallest step you might do to say, how can I start to nudge this system, to nudge this culture into a change? I think a book club is a really good idea. That
is a very good idea. And they also do lunch and learn on your own lunchtime. Not mention you've already have meetings from morning to the afternoon. So yeah, it is. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Yeah, a lean coffee is also good to surface the issues. Fadi, I suspect that you are going to tell me I am done.
I just want to do a time check, just to make sure everybody's aware that we are past time. If you still have time to join us, Johanna, I would love to keep the conversation open if people still have questions. But I just want to make sure everybody's aware, which is 1:05. It was awesome for you all to join us. And note that our next talk is Monday at 6 p.m. about psychological safety. If you need to drop off, it was great that you are here. Otherwise, if Johanna, you still have time, if people still have questions, it'll be awesome to keep it going.
I have a few more minutes, and then I need to eat my own lunch.
All right, let's doesn't look like anybody has any more questions.
I can raise one. If I
All right, Orlando, last question.
Imagine a scenario where you have two teams. One team is going well, it's having momentum, working well. Or in this case, 5 people. Another team with 5 people, it's not, has problems, not good team dynamic. Maybe the causes are related with people not doing what they would like to do. Maybe they would like to do stuff in Java, for instance, but they are doing Perl because of legacy issues. And the management comes with the solution, which is to merge both teams to address the issue of making easy in a team of 10 people that people can better switch, better have things that they can do that they please them better. I see a lot of risks. I see the biggest risk is that I'll say the good team may not influence, may observe the, let's say the bad team. It's not exactly like this, of course. Instead of the opposite of, I don't know what your thoughts about. I don't know if this happens a lot.
Yeah, thank you for this. I should write a blog post about this. Every time you change membership on a team, the team has changed, right? So if you add a person, if you subtract a person, you have a different team. If you take, one team of 5 people that's doing well, and another team of 5 people that's not doing well, and you combine them, you will now have a team of 10 people not doing well. Or worse, you have a team of 5 people that is still working together, and then these other 5 people are all wondering what the heck they need to do. It's so important instead to understand why the team of 5 people is not doing well. Combining the teams is not an answer, right? What is happening on that supposed team of 5 people? Do they have an overarching goal? I often find that a team of 5 people that has individual goals does not work as a team. Do they have an overarching goal? If so, do they understand how to offer each other coaching and feedback? Right? Maybe they have interpersonal issues. Maybe they have a team like the one I was on, where I'm a big time extrovert, and I was on a team with 4 other introverts. I was not aware that every single time I talked, I interrupted their thought processes until somebody finally told me, Johanna, every time you say something, and you say something every 10 seconds, I can't think. I said, oh, okay, fine. You don't think out loud? No, I don't think out loud. So that person gave me feedback. Could that person have offered me feedback slightly differently? Maybe, but I understood now, which was really important. So I suspect it's not so much about introverts and extroverts. It's probably more about seniority, how people are rewarded. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff, but smushing together 2 teams is not an answer. And neither is breaking up the team that's doing well and seeding other teams with those people. The magic fairy dust does not transfer.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That was my
intuition.
Thank you.
Yeah. No, you're right. Your intuition is exactly right. Okay, so Fadi, I'm going to call it a day because I need to eat my lunch.
Thanks a lot for joining us and sharing your presentation with us. This was awesome. Thanks everybody else for attending. And hopefully we'll have you again here next year as well. Maybe you have a new book out as well.
I will. Yeah, I'm finishing one right now. Yeah.
Fantastic. All right, everybody. Have a great weekend. Thanks for joining, and we'll see you on Monday. Take care, everybody.
Okay.
Thank you all.
Johanna.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.